I'm Dane, and this is Dane Explains. I've been doing a series of videos lately on terraforming. I've covered several of the more oddball worlds like the Moon and Mercury. One thing all those worlds have in common is they have little to no atmosphere. That would seem to make them hard targets to terraform, because you'd have to import volatiles. However, I think terraforming Venus would be much harder to do, even though it has plenty of volatiles. Let me explain why. Small worlds like the Moon and Mercury may seem like hard targets to terraform because you have to import material to start the process. However, it's actually not that hard due to their small sizes. Like I pointed out in an earlier video, smacking the worlds with a large Kuiper Belt object is all that would be needed to add the necessary resources. Venus, on the other hand, has plenty of atmosphere to work with. And in spite of having some of the most inhospitable conditions on the surface of any terrestrial world in the solar system, high up in its atmosphere, it has some of the best conditions. So it seems like it would be a pretty good place to start. But getting it started isn't the issue with the planet Venus. It's getting to the finish. While the Moon may only need 10 to 15% of the volatiles as Earth to give it a substantial atmosphere, Venus already has almost 100 times the atmosphere of Earth. So, to make the place inhabitable on its surface, you need to remove a lot of atmosphere. A pretty daunting task when considering Venus has over 90% of the gravity of Earth and has an extremely slow rotation. So you couldn't lift the atmosphere off using rockets or elevate it off using a space elevator. Venus's atmosphere is 96% carbon dioxide and 4% nitrogen. If there were some way to import a lot of hydrogen, then it may be possible to react it with the carbon dioxide, making carbon and water. If you converted all of the carbon dioxide, then Venus would have an ocean covering around 80% of its surface area. Although you could refrain from converting all of the carbon dioxide and use some to make a breathable oxygen atmosphere. The only issue you'd have to deal with at that point is the tiny percent of nitrogen gas. Now, 3 or 4% doesn't sound like much, but Venus has a 92 bar atmosphere. So that means, even without the carbon dioxide, you still have a nitrogen atmosphere 3 times as thick as Earth's atmosphere. Nitrogen is fairly inert, however, and isn't a greenhouse gas. Also, humans can survive at those pressures, so it may not be a big deal. So let's ignore it for now. The absolute biggest issue would be importing enough hydrogen. But let's assume you could get the needed hydrogen from the sun or maybe a gas giant. At that point, you could use the organisms I described in my previous terraforming videos to hang in the atmosphere and consume the carbon dioxide and hydrogen to make water, oxygen, and carbon for its cellular structures. Due to the thick atmosphere, this would still probably take hundreds of thousands to millions of years. In that time frame, the sun's radiation would break down the water and strip it away from Venus's atmosphere, so the entire upper atmosphere of the planet would need to be those organisms to protect the atmosphere from the radiation. If you're lost, go and watch the terraforming video linked in the description, where I describe the organisms and how they work. The pace you could work at is limited by the amount of energy Venus receives from the sun, so once it was all set up, the only thing you would need is patience. A lot of patience. The only way to work faster would be to use nuclear or thermonuclear technologies and machines, but that goes far off into the realm of speculation, so I won't explore it in this video. In light of that, in spite of the fact that Venus has one of the most hospitable environments to Earth life in its upper atmosphere, it's probably the most difficult world in the inner solar system to terraform to have livable conditions on its surface. Although that's not to imply we couldn't colonize its atmosphere, which would be habitable through most of the terraforming process. And Earth air is a lifting gas on Venus, so setting up Bespin-like cloud cities might not be too difficult. So, your great-great-great-great-grandchildren may not be able to live on Venus, but they could be living in floating cloud cities above its surface. Thank you for watching. If you like this video and other topics ranging from theology to science, please press the like button, subscribe to my channel, and ding the bell to get notified when I post new videos. Also, please support me on Patreon to get extra content and special perks. Link in the description. The more people support me, the more time I can dedicate to making videos like this one. So, until next time, have a great week.